the Del Norte Solid Waste Authority to order.
And Jerry, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
With the new systems, we might tell everyone that they have to turn their little red light on.
Yeah, I think we got that introduction. We were the first ones, I think, at the last solid waste board. Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Okay, so since we are ready to go, I am going to, and looks like I left my agenda at my last place of my last place of employment. That's good. I do, I just yeah. Okay, at this time I'm going to ask for, well, let me see, let's go through the whole thing. Get my eyes on here. Yeah, I've been running all the way. The Solid Waste Management Authority of the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte, State of California, is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned times. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate public and staff availability. And for your information, all the documents that are referred to on this agenda are available at the Office of Solid Waste. They're also available online at www.recycledelnorte.ca.gov. Just for your information if you're having a hard time getting hold of that stuff. We are going to open it up for public comment. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda. After receiving recognition from the chair, please give your name, address for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? Steve? Need to get you up here, Steve.
Okay, my name is Steve Clegg. I'm the owner of North Crest Auto Center, and I have a request for the board to consider that the towing contract for the abandoned vehicle program be reopened for bidding. It was last opened for bidding in 2009, and it's been 2 years since. And both times I have spoken with Mr. Hendrick about the possibility of the bidding being reopened, and both times he didn't feel it was necessary. According to the contract or to the bid proposal that we submitted, there was no time limit to the contract, no designated time. It's only for a year, 2 years, 10 years. And so I believe because it's a public contract, it should be open for bidding, either every year or whatever period of time it needs to be designated. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment, then I'm going to close the public comment period. You will still have the opportunity to comment on items that are on the agenda.
Just, Mr. Chair, just
Sure.
Who does have the contract for towing?
I think it's American Towing.
So what is the process we use on?
Red button.
Yeah.
Well, it's never been done before, but this board also is the same board as the Abandoned Vehicle Authority. So we can schedule a session of the Abandoned Vehicle Authority next month, and you can decide if you want to do it. Mr. Clay had the contract for 5 or 6 years. It was rebid a couple years ago in 2009, and American Towing has it right now. If the board gives notice, I believe in November, to terminate, so the board has the option, the AVA board has the option to terminate that contract and put it out to bid at any point as long as we meet the time frame in the existing contract. Otherwise, it rolls over, renews automatically.
So why did we change it last time? Or what was the process, I guess, is what my question is.
The AVA approved a request for proposals. There was a competitive process, and I think we got 2. We might have gotten 3.
So what was the reason we went out to bid, though, I guess, is what my question. What triggered that to reevaluate that?
Well, Dave Mason is the one that works most closely with it, and I could ask him to come to the next meeting to have his
I would
opinion
like
as well.
to be a process in place. It sounds like it.
Well, there's no, well, like I said, the process is an RFP and then a contract which rolls over automatically until the board decides to do it again.
But my question is, what triggers it to go out to RFP? I mean, what do we have a timeline as to when we go to that?
No, there's no set timeline.
it seemed like that'd be on a public contract, that'd be a realistic, fair thing to do.
It's up to the board, right? So if the board wanted to reopen it, then we could.
Right. It's your discretion.
I mean, even if the board on the future wants to open up, that's not my issue. It's really, is it a 5-year contract, is it an 8-year contract, is it a 20-year contract? But let's put some kind of parameters, so at least it's.
It makes sense to put at least a 3 or 5 year time limit on a contract to have it reviewed.
Okay, let's put that on the agenda. We'll take a look at that at the next meeting.
Can do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I already did. Pardon me?
Oh, I need to know on the consent calendar, I give you a swap out page that the minutes that you have in your agenda did not include Catherine Murray, and we know she was here.
Mr. Chair, item number 1 says is a report from the Solid Waste Task
Oh,
Force.
I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mary. I'm dreaming here. Yeah.
Mary Wilson, Chair from the Solid Waste Task Force, and good afternoon. Unfortunately, at our last meeting, we did not have a quorum and had a couple of people that were sick, but we did discuss our agenda and basically went over and asked for the operational bylaws for the task force, so we have a good, clear direction on exactly what the parameters that the board had set for the task force, in addition to the Public Resources Code. What we found, the bylaws were written in 1996, which is, of course, previous to the transfer station being opened and the landfill being closed approximately 2005. Would like to update those, and with that have looked at bylaws from other communities, Sonoma, Colusa, Napa. Online, they have their bylaws available, and would like to update them. A portion of the bylaws go into sections about the siting, putting the transfer station where it's at, and so a lot of that is really kind of out of date. Another thing we did is we talked in regards to a recording secretary, and once we found the bylaws, we realized that they call for a recording secretary, and hence Rose was at the meeting and that did take minutes. And old business that we went over was regarding the rental property ordinance, and so we went ahead, and at our next meeting, we will be putting forward a public workshop for input regarding the rental property ordinance, and that will be on the 10th of May, and it will be at 5:30 at the Healthcare District, and that's the second Thursday of the month, which is our regular scheduled meeting. And so again, we'll be sending out information to the Chamber of Commerce, and as well as anybody that you know that may have some rentals that may want to have an input on this. That would be the time, and then we would put together a report for the board. The other item that we will be going over at that workshop is in regards to the new law that is coming online on July 1st, passed by West Chesborough, regarding the it's the statewide commercial recycling mandate. So all apartments, which is coming up very quickly. July 1st will be here before we know it, but basically the law calls for the multifamily complexes and commercial businesses that generate more than 4 cubic yards of trash to have a recyclable. So we'll be doing those two things, and then we'll, of course, report back to this board. Also, during the course of our meeting, Richard Miles, who was unfortunately not sick, who was sick and wasn't there, had asked that we look into asking regarding the operational expenses of the authority, and we did bring that up. I would like to ask the board itself in regards to the task force for some clear direction, looking into those operational expenses for the authority. So that's pretty much what we covered at our last meeting, and gosh, I'm hoping that we get a quorum.
Are you looking for, excuse me, Mary, I don't mean to interrupt you, but getting back to your, the financial portion of what you were just saying, are you looking for more that what's in here? Have you got the agenda packet that we've got here that shows the operating expenses, the budget?
I have gone pretty thoroughly through what the comparison between the budgets. I still, through just a discussion last time, I asked everybody on the task force if they had a very clear understanding of the operational expenses and where the authority was at and what it cost to operate, what the income was, and they did not have that. And I feel that that is necessary. And so,
Yeah, if there's something other than what is that is what is in here, that you need something different than what we've got in the budget packet here, either get a hold of Kevin or Mr. Taylor, if there's information that you can gather from either one of those people and get that information from them. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to provide that information.
yeah, I'd appreciate that. In fact, Mr. Ania had even suggested that the city had someone that is very good looking at finances, and I don't know if he'd be available too to kind of take a look.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay.
Whatever information you need to get should be available to you. You should be able to get that from either Kevin or, like I said, from Mr. Taylor. Either one of those people should be able to.
Well, I hope more eyes looking into it will help.
We have a really great finance director, but
That's what I heard.
he's right in the middle of budgets.
Yeah,
So
so probably after July.
Mr. Chair?
And I would maybe call Mr. Palazzo to discuss that with him.
I did.
Oh,
We
okay.
wanted some direction from the board.
Oh, great.
Mary, is it kind of a training that you want to understand it? I'm not sure what you mean by...
No, it's not necessarily a training. I'm pretty familiar with operational expenses. I just need to be able to figure out the, get a good, clear understanding of why the expenses have been greater than the revenue. Why? What are the changes that, why is this budget from this year, the revenues increased 36% here just in 9 months, and why it's a lot greater. The income is a lot greater than what they had even projected, and by 50%. And so, where's that money going? Why? I mean, I just need to, figure that out. So I don't have a clear understanding of it at this point, and I don't believe that the task force does either, because I specifically asked, and I feel that that's very important.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask Mary a question.
Yes.
Is it your understanding that it's under the purview of the task force to investigate whether or not a private company running the solid waste would be a good idea? Or is it that this board has to direct you to do that?
Again, last meeting I did leave a little bit early, and I heard from other people on the task force that were here in regards to the long-term sustainability of the task force, that perhaps the board wanted the task force to look into some of those issues. And of course, that would be an option. I mean, you have to put all your options on the table in order to analyze each of them. And so I would say yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Any
I
other
wanted-
questions from
I wanted to make
members?
a comment.
Sure.
I just wanted to let you know that the new franchise with Recology takes into consideration the commercial recycling mandate and is already, I believe, in place, just so you know.
Yeah, just the education process, I guess, for the business owners is
Martha,
what
you had something?
I think we were going to move forward on.
Are you talking about businesses or the apartment buildings?
I consider those a business, I guess.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
I just have a process question in relationship to when you don't have a quorum. It's okay to go over the agenda, but to make decisions about that on the agenda is a pretty slippery slope. And it seems you only made a minor decision, and that was to hold the workshop. But I would say go in caution when you have a public agenda-sized meeting.
Yeah, I was a little unsure about that too. It kind of worked out that it was going to be at a regularly scheduled meeting.
It's just important not to draw concluding action during that time without a quorum.
And I just had a quick question again on the 10th. What time is the meeting again?
It's at 5:30.
And where is it going to be?
And it's at the healthcare district office. So, there's a board meeting there. I haven't been there myself either, so I spilled my coffee. It's on Washington Boulevard on the corner
I think corner of Washington.
Might be on the
of,
flyer, Mary.
in North Crest.
It might be on that flyer.
I guess,
It's 550 East Washington.
Thanks, Mary.
If I may add for the board's information, I did offer to take a look at the last fiscal year's budget end for background and go through, and I mentioned that we'll be discussing the coming year budget, well, current year budget and coming year budget, so that those 3 years will probably give them a good background. I'll do that at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
You get more public comment.
We're through with public comment.
That's right.
Hang on just a second, Richard.
Public comment on this item?
Did you want to comment on the task force report?
Yes, because unfortunately, I was ill and didn't attend the meeting, and that's why they didn't have a full quorum.
Okay.
Like Mary, I have some concerns on a number of things after our initial meeting. At that initial meeting, I suggested that the person that needs to come and talk to us is both Kevin, because as your manager, he prepares these budgets, and then you people approve them, correct? But the man who oversees all of this is Mr. Taylor. Before we get the city involved in all of this, I'd like to see a report given to us by Mr. Taylor, because he oversees the outflow of the money, and Kevin prepares the budget, and you people approve it. If it's about the sustainability of the authority.
Richard, you're getting onto topics that we're going to be talking about later. So
Okay.
I'm going to have you hold your comments on all of that stuff.
Okay, then I got one more comment.
Okay.
I want to thank Mr. Sparrow for an advertisement he sent me yesterday, and I called.
Richard?
No, let me finish, Mr. Hemmingson.
Richard, you're off topic.
Should I sit down?
I've already had.
Should I sit down?
Please. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Move to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Public comment on the consent agenda only. Richard?
Can I bring this subject up on public comment?
We've already had public comment. Public comment period is over. This is the consent agenda.
Okay, let me look at it.
Call the question.
Seeing
I have
seeing
a-
no public comment, I'm going to bring it back to the board for comments.
Yes, on page 4, under the director's report, 3 people made public comments, but there is nothing to indicate what anyone said. And I would just ask that a brief statement be written in our minutes.
Page 4 of the minutes, is that what you're talking about, Donna?
Yeah, Richard Miles, Mary Wilson, Paul Dillard made public comments on items within the director's report, but there is nothing in there about what they said.
And I think that's fairly common. That's what they're supposed to put in there. If you want to see what they said directly, you can either go to the transcript or watch it on the video. Is there anything else from commissioners? Okay. Would you, Rose, would you poll the vote, please?
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner Westfall?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamer?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Nia?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlong?
Yes.
Commissioner Murray? Yes. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes.
Chair Hemmingson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the director's report. Kevin.
Okay, you have in front of you in your agenda the claims approved by director. These were expenses that were approved since the last meeting under my authority to approve small claims. You have the monthly cash and charge reports for March, the revenue comparison report, which I update for you every month to show how the income is coming in. And then when we published the agenda, item 3.4, we had not received it yet from the auditor's office. But that report, every board member should have a copy of that in front of you, and that was also emailed to you as soon as I got it on last Friday. I think probably most notable on that, after March 31st, the revenue seems to be coming along on projections, and probably most notable year-to-date, revenues over expenditures shows $114,000. And while that seems like a big number, at the end of the year, we hope to have enough to set aside into a reserve fund for depreciation, and we have $100,962 budgeted for depreciation. So if this all turns out on trend, we should have enough money at the end of the year to at least set some money aside for a reserve fund. Oh, two additional things. Update on the carpet. We've started the carpet take back, and seen a lot of business from Birchall's. If you want to talk to somebody who's happy about this program, talk to Bob Birchall, because I've seen him on the site and he's saving lots of money. So, and I think that some of the organ installers haven't figured it out yet. But everybody that comes in with carpet, we're trying to give them the instructions on how to do it. And I just noticed David's not here. What's up with that?
He had some
It's hard to keep track with all
personal
of you.
stuff to take care of.
The other thing is the status of the Sharps take-back program. At the last meeting, you took a bold step and approved a rate, you approved a contract, and you authorized us to submit for permits. So the permits are secured, so that basically Ted and I and our staff can go out and pick up the drop-off containers. The contract has been signed with a company called Sharp Solutions, so there'll be a charge of $75 per container that they bring back from us. And we have just one more week left in our grant to pay for advertising, so we're running a last push on advertising both on the radio station and in the newspaper, informing people of the two new drop-off locations at the Del Norte Senior Center and at the Del Norte Community Health Center. And I was happy to be able to take those containers out this morning and delivered them to those people. So they're very happy for the service, and that's a very nice thing that they're doing. And once again, kudos to the healthcare district for helping to fund the collection from those sites.
Right on. Thanks.
Yeah.
Martha?
I just had an idea as you were saying that, and I don't know if it's possible with just one, it probably is possible with just 1 week left, but if some of that money could actually be diverted to some RAC cards that could then go into different doctor's offices who serve patients, lots of diabetic and people who are, as the year goes by, it would still be, they could pass that out to them. I don't know.
Yeah, in fact, you may, I don't know if I showed you the brochure that we printed.
We have them.
We had 3,000 brochures printed, and we've been passing them out to every doctor's office and everybody that we think would have a customer base to educate. And we do have some money left over, so I just ordered an extra batch of brochures today, because we wrote them to be generic. That is generic information, and then the specific details that we're developing include who's currently selling Sharps containers and what is that price. We were at the Youth and Family Fair last weekend, and we'll be at the Coastal Expo this weekend to talk to people. We have 2 employees from the California Product Stewardship coming up this weekend to help us with the booth, and all that's being paid for the grant. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback, a lot of extra participation at the transfer station, and the businesses that are selling the Sharps containers keep selling out. So when I went and bought the samples that I wanted to have for the Youth and Family Fair, I strongly encouraged them to buy more because they're in business to sell them. Initially, we really had hoped, in fact, I tried every way up and down to try to get some of the grant money to buy Sharps containers to pass out. We've done that before. But in retrospect, it's really the best thing to not be providing free containers when we have finally 5 businesses in town that are selling the proper containers. So we're simply directing customers to them. We've researched the prices so we can tell them where to go, how much it's going to cost, and so for $3, less than $3, you can get a Sharps container at Walmart. It's pretty affordable. And Crescent City Hay and Feed has agricultural size containers, which for some diabetics would last them a year probably because they're quite large. But as long as it's FDA approved, it contains it, and then they bring them into the drop-off site, that all works for us.
Great.
Any questions?
Any questions or comments from commissioners on the director's report?
Yeah, just a reminder that I'd like to get an analysis of the tonnage across the scales. Now, I asked that at the last meeting also.
It's actually on a graph in your...
Yeah, I'd like the actual numbers,
Okay.
not the graph, so.
Okay.
Any public comment on the director's report? Pardon me? Sure, yeah, anything under the director's report?
This refers to, Mary Wilson, this refers to item 3.3 under the director's report on the revenue comparisons between fiscal year 10-11 and 11-12. And so in taking the paper, I had a question, what is if the franchise fee is included in the source authority service fee?
No,
No, it's in
they're
addition.
separate.
Okay. Okay, so in looking at these numbers, what I did is I took a total number at the end of each column for the first 9 months of 2010-11 and then 11-12. And what I came up with was a couple of different things. Number one, on the revenues for the franchise fees, they are $140,000 this year so far. It's actually a 40% increase over what it was for the previous year. And I did note an expense mistake in here on December under 2011-12. And so I was very curious. It says $21,986. Do you see it there? That actually doesn't add up if you add across the column. It should only be $21,086. There's a $900 error in there. And I just was curious because my QuickBooks program automatically, figures that in. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. The second thing I want to bring up, and I'd like to pass this out because it's kind of hard to follow these charts.
Mary, can you clarify what you're talking about on that point?
I don't understand what you got going there either.
December,
Yeah,
21,986?
Yes, it should only be $21,086.
How do you derive that?
How do you get that?
You add the $15,447 plus the $5,669 across.
That's a different year.
It's the increase from one year over the other. So if you add them all consistently, like if you start with July and you add across the 7,200, you're going to end up straight across with the 22,426 on the first line.
Is this not two different years? Am I confused?
The increase is from one year to the other, and so it shows that all of them, if you add all the way across.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I got the increase. I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, Mary, yes, math error?
Yeah, so I was very curious because
The actual number, the 21,986, is the number that was paid. So the math error is simply subtracting the 2 years.
Okay, and then let me move on to the actual authority report, and I passed that. If you pass those down, basically what I did again was add up the 9 months for the bottom columns, and I figured out what the difference was. So the revenues for the first for 9 months have been $551,000 for 2010, 2011. And then the revenue for 2011, 2012 has gone up to $748,000.
Mary, I'm sorry. There's all, I don't know what I'm supposed to be. They're all different.
So
There's
this
these.
is the only thing we're needing?
Right, just this one here.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you give a copy of that to Rose?
As soon as I finish reading, I only have it.
There's an extra copy.
So basically, there's an increase of $197,000 in revenues from 2010-11 to 2011-12. And it says in here that the $64,000 that is over budget means that the authority had planned on increasing the actual budget by $132,000. So I know it's kind of hard to follow because it's all numbers. That's why I put it down on this form right here. So if you add up all 9 months for 2010-11 and 2011-12, that's where these figures come from. This 748,000 and the 551. And the difference is the amount of extra income that has come so far this year. However, it states that it's over what was budgeted by 64,000. So it's over what was planned on coming in. So that means they had planned, the increase that was planned was 132,000 according to your own budget. So it's 55% more than what was even planned on, the income that's come in. So I just have, again, my standard question, why did this happen? So it's really hard to go over these charts.
It's probably not the place to try to explain it, but part of what the increase was determined to be needed for was the requirement of the Gadsby monies that came, and then the new fees that are being charged by the Integrated Waste Management Board.
Water
Board.
The Water Board.
Regional Quality Water.
The Water Board. And then to have more coming in is partially because of the tsunami cleanup. That was more than it had been anticipated of what would go over the scales.
And I think we're going to get into more of this once we get to the actual budget
budget.
itself.
Oh, okay.
When we start talking about that, Mary, so maybe a lot of this stuff will be explained there because I've got some questions myself.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Without that $64,000 increase, it is a 36% increase.
Right.
So in 1 year.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the director's report? Richard?
Mr. Henderson, do you want me to wait till 7.2 to ask the question I want to ask instead of waiting and asking?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I'll sit down. It's called due diligence.
Okay, thank you.
Not really, but.
Okay, I don't think there's any action we need to take, Kevin, on your report, so we're going to move on. We have no landfill post-closure, no collections franchise, no transfer station stuff. Now we're on to general solid waste authority matters. 7.1, we are going to discuss the current year budget and draft budget for 2012-2013. Kevin, you want to start us off, or?
Yes, thank you. This year's a little bit different from previous years, so we're going to try to work through this with you as far as process. I'm calling this a draft budget because I thought the board would have questions and perhaps a request for additional information. I didn't get any requests leading up to this, and I'm not sure what analysis she just presented, but I'll take a look at any questions you have. Prepare a preliminary budget for the next meeting in May, at which point you can set a public hearing for adoption in June, and we need to figure out the appropriate process because the JPA still requires that I do a presentation of the budget to the city and the county. So those are the sort of logistical issues in front of you. And
That's going to really make it boring at our city and county meetings, isn't it, to go over this again?
I'll take your guidance from that. So I have provided you a draft budget that is balanced, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the proposed or the current?
Yeah, it goes back to my question earlier about the tonnage going across the scales. Right now, you've got it. What tonnage are you basing the revenue on?
If you look at the chart here, the bar graph,
Yeah, I've seen the bar graph.
there are numbers to back that up, and I have noted that you'd like to see the numbers.
As long as we're on this graph, I do have a couple of things. What's HHW?
Household hazardous waste.
Okay. And that I'm assuming is the thinnest part of this graph? Oh, it's not in color, so
Yeah, it's
it's
not in
very
color, it's
difficult.
hard to see.
It appears
I'm
as
sorry.
like the reused stuff, it's pretty notable that in 07, 08, or it looks like that there was a considerable amount more of reused than there is currently, or there was in 10, 11. It looks like there was almost nothing in 10, 11, if my graph has come out right. And then on the that's in the bottom graph of the annual tons. But I was noticing also in March, you hit the lowest March ever in tonnage. Is that correct? And then
March of this year?
March, well, of any year, this is the lowest amount of tonnage that's ever gone through this?
I think you're reading that right, yes.
And,
I think it was rain.
yeah, that just confused me a little bit on the amount of money. It appears as though the monies were pretty good in March, and yet there was not very much tonnage. That was just a little bit confusing to me. Didn't seem to compute exactly correctly.
Well, I can see that we should have spent the extra 10 cents to make color copies for you, because I agree, this is hard to read.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you had, what, 15,000 tons up to this point, which, basically we're on schedule for like a 20,000 ton.
Yeah, if you look at the bar graph, after 3 months, we're about 3/4 of the way up that chart. If you factored in another 25%, it's going to be up to that next line up there. It's going to be very darn close to the last 3 years as far as total tonnage. And this is tonnage received at the transfer station. So all of these graphs have numbers to back them up. I'll prepare that for you.
Now, in this legend where you've got recycled,
Reused, recycled, burned, landfill.
where do those numbers? Is that a number that Hambros?
This is all based on tonnage coming into the transfer station,
comes in.
incoming, and then where does it go after that? That's what the bar graph is supposed to demonstrate for you.
Okay, but that would be recyclable.
So this is separate from the recycling that happens outside the transfer station, the collection.
Right. So, and that seems to stay relatively consistent, even though, isn't there a huge amount now that's being recycled that doesn't go, this is all stuff that goes over the scale, is that correct?
This is incoming tonnage at the transfer
At the
station,
scale-
yeah.
at the scale.
So that's where our
And
revenue
that-
comes from.
And it's hard to tell on a graph exactly what numbers we're looking at, but it doesn't seem to be that far off from total, if I'm looking at what I think is recycled, material here, it seems like that would be a lot less, since most of the recycled material should be taken out already? Or have you got some recycled material that is just consistently?
We still see recycled materials come into the transfer station, and some of it is metal. If people don't separate out their chunks of metal, the Hamburg workers do it, that adds probably up to the biggest tonnage that gets diverted from the garbage that enters the transfer station. So that's separate from the bottles and cans that get collected from the businesses and the residents.
You can't really tell anything from this graph without colors, but it looks to me like the recycling is about half of what it was last year.
Well, we haven't gotten up to the full year yet, so you can't,
Yeah, I know.
so you can't tell at this point where we're at. But I mean, it looks to me like if you were going to push it on up, it'd be relatively close, but it's hard to tell without the tonnage. Does somebody else have any questions? I just have a couple more.
Go ahead.
The life insurance for employees and life insurance for management,
What page are you on, Jerry?
well, you can be on
It's on the first.
a couple of different pages because it breaks it down.
First spreadsheet.
You're asking about where the number came from?
No, I'm not asking where the number comes from, because it says that, it looks to me like everybody pays in to life insurance at $41.40 per month. If you look on the graph in the back, or you're on it there, everyone pays $41.40, but then management has another life insurance. Is it a different life insurance policy for $1,299?
Is it based on wages?
There's $1,299.
No, I think that's correct, Jerry.
Employment, or the management life insurance, but then why would you pay into, why do you pay into the employee life insurance as well as the I mean, I'm assuming that's you, and is that just you, or is it
I think that $12.99 is just me.
just you for a life insurance policy that pays who?
Well, whoever's left after I'm dead, I guess.
It pays your beneficiaries, is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
No.
So why does it show that you're paying in on the employee life insurance and then you have another policy on top of that?
Well, it's not double dipping, it's,
Is
They're-
it based on wages?
No, it's probably based on his age. I mean, that's how life insurance.
no, I think it's based on everybody else who is part of the union and part of the MOU and part of the mainstream has the policy that the county gets, probably very similar to what all the county employees get. I'm not sure what your deal is with your directors, but my agreement with the Solid Waste Authority provides for a life insurance policy, so it's because I'm the only one that's not part of the union, my deal is separate from that.
Well, and that's my...
That's why it's separate, but it is not overlapping and it's not duplicative. I don't have two life insurance policies. Although it is a good guess to guess it would be more expensive because I'm old and decrepit. That's not, I don't think that's the reason.
I think the reason that there's a question, Kevin, is because across from your name under life insurance, it has the 4140, and then at the bottom, it has 1299.
Well, that's a good point. I can check into that for you. This chart that we're looking at here was given to me by Clint Shad, so he did the calculations. Those are the actual charges that the county charges us.
It's correct. I mean, this total is...
So solid waste is paying $12.99. Is that correct? That's the authority is?
Yeah, this would be the total down here, 331.20.
Kevin, what does the compensation number refer to that's just adjacent to the $12.99?
That's workers' comp.
Is that workers' comp, all people
If
included?
you look up higher, it says workers up there, workers' compensation, there's kind of a...
So it's everybody in that line?
Right.
Okay.
That's the charge that the county charges us for keeping us on their workers' comp policy, and they
I
have
see.
some mechanism they use to calculate that.
And it varies based upon their salaries, so it's, yeah, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a comment and questions. one of the reasons we have this super fund is because of the complaints of the people paying garbage bills. And so in my mind, one of the things we have to do is reduce expenses in order to reduce those rates. In looking at the audit report, the ad hoc committee report, it was mentioned that Kevin and Ted were at the top of the pay scale. And I want to know what it would take to reduce that salary and also to eliminate the step up of $5,000.
Could you explain to me what you mean by we have a super fund and that's in relationship to this?
Super committee, excuse me, not a super fund.
Okay, thank you.
I'm guessing that was directed at you. Question. Oh, sure.
Well, you'd have to negotiate with the association.
Well,
no, I
that's
guess-
up to, unless it's completely voluntary. Yeah.
Well, I'll address the step increases. You have two categories of employees. You have me, and I have a direct contract. I'm an at-will employee. So I serve until 6 of you decide I am no longer worthy of your service. Everybody else is a member of a union, and we have an MOU. The MOU is structured the same as the county MOU, and it provides for step increases up to a certain level, and then once you get up to a certain step, you don't get another raise till year 10, and then year 15, and then year 20. And so there are a number of employees. There are actually only 4 employees that are eligible to receive step increases this year. As of March next year, I will have been here 20 years, so I will be one of them. Clinton didn't have information on me, but when he calculated the salaries, he included the step increases for the 3 employees that would be eligible for step increases. The 3 employees that are eligible, he did not include me when I brought it up. He added an extra couple $1,000s to make sure that if you did award me the step increase next March, that it would be budgeted. So out of the 4 employees including me, the total cost of step increases, which is already included in the projection for salaries, is about $5,142. That's to give you a perspective of what would be saved if you didn't do that. If you wanted to not give the step increases to the 3 union employees, that would require a negotiation with the union to eliminate the step increases. That would be the process you'd have to go through. I don't know if that answers your question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
When you're an at-will employee, you still have a contract, isn't that correct?
I do have a contract.
Okay, thank you.
2 other comments. On the audit and legal counsel, we have budgeted $8,500, 2011, 2012, going up to $8,850 in 2012, 2013, and I want to know why we can't put that out to bid. And then under legal counsel, we have $12,000 budgeted for each year. I'd like to know why we can't put that out to bid.
The actual cost for the audit this year was the number that I budgeted for next year. So whatever that number was, you said $8,850 is the contract we have. That went up after the budget was adopted, I think, so we had to transfer some money to cover that for this year. So I budgeted the actual amount that we paid for the auditor this year. The board can decide they want to go out to bid on audits. That's your prerogative. You have the contract power. My advice is it's probably simpler, since the county holds all of our financial documents, to have the same auditor as the county. So if you were going to recommend finding a different auditor, you would want to consider that in the larger context of the county as well. Similarly with the legal counsel, we have a contract that is only valid until you say it isn't. So if you decide that you're not satisfied with your legal counsel, or if you decide that you want to do something else, that's within your power to do that.
Anything else?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that that discussion was addressed at the last meeting.
You know, I did have a question, because from what I understand in the past, when I've asked this question too, is the solid waste mirrors what the county does in terms of benefits and stuff. So I'm not sure, and maybe it's a question in closed session, is why we have a separate life policy. There's no other appointed head in county government that has a separate life.
That's what we're going to find out.
What's that?
That's what we're going to find out,
Yeah.
because we're not sure why he put it in the other column.
But if he has a separate life insurance policy, then what all the other employees are getting in addition to?
No, there's only one life insurance policy.
You only have one life insurance policy?
I think so. Of
We
course,
need some
I won't
clarification on that.
And-
really know the answer to that till I'm dead.
But
I'll try to leave a note for my wife.
I think that that's what Chad needs to look at.
Yeah, because on group term, you'd have the cost spread out among everyone. If it's an individual policy, you would have a breakdown as for that individual and why the cost would be higher. That would be explained. But anyway, that is a question I have.
Right, so more details on the life insurance policy, I've got that.
Kevin, I'd like to say I appreciate you bringing down about 12 of the line items and reducing those in light of the budget considerations that we do have. One of them, though, has to do with professional services from the county and the city. We've dropped that all of $10,000. Is there some reason why we can do that? I'm glad to see that there. But what's happening differently this year than last year?
We have less money. I mean, I had to cut every place. This is the tightest budget I've ever had to try to put together because, like I said, it appears that the revenue's coming in on schedule, and we're making assumptions that it will be the same next year. We didn't increase revenue, but because of the $55,000 payment to the State Water Board, that's put a significant imbalance in our budget. And the $30,000 this year was money budgeted for a combination of county services where they bill us for the engineering department when they help us with the landfill testing sometimes. And predominantly it's for code enforcement.
Well, that's what I wasn't sure what that was for.
And to date, the billings are down, although we're cooperating with the community development department and the code enforcement officer to try to allow them to bill us more before the end of the year because they need the money. So there's a lot of times across the board here, you're going to see a challenging dynamic between the fact that we're trying to balance our budget and the county also is kind of relying on that revenue coming into the community development department. So there will be a balance we have to achieve. That's one place I had to cut, so I did.
Thank you.
And I just had a couple of other things. The OPEBs, I didn't see the unfunded, and I probably just missed it. I looked at it several times.
On what?
The unfunded benefits plan. I don't see an amount in here for that.
Oh, for the, it's at the bottom.
Okay, and I knew it was someplace.
Yeah, it's under total operating expense, page 4.
Post-employee benefits, okay.
Yeah, 11,125.
Yeah, I
That's the
was-
same number budgeted this year.
Okay, well, no, I was looking for it in a different, I was looking up for it in salaries and stuff, and
And again, that's about 25% of what we should be committed.
exactly.
Putting in.
And which was, now the depreciation amount, is that a funded amount? You're talking about funding that amount of depreciation?
If you look
Or
at,
is it just an accounting number?
well, this is,
This is
we're
not-
budgeting for putting that money aside. So
Okay.
that's, and when I talked to Clint, he said I think he agreed that it would be a good idea to start putting money in reserve, but only if we don't have a deficit, because otherwise it doesn't really exist, which is where we were last year. The board took the step to increase the revenue so we could eliminate the deficit and start compiling some prudent reserve.
So then-
So if you look at the attachment, it says depreciation schedule. It's a whole
Yeah.
cluster of numbers.
Yeah, I did see
That gives you some details on where the big numbers are
Right.
for the basis of depreciation. In fact, I'm glad you brought it up because I would like to spend some time with, I talked to Clint, the county auditor, that the depreciation schedule is prepared by the county, but if you look at the first big number on the top, transfer station, never mind the little number in front, 2 is just referencing the order of the things. But the transfer station development, the full construction was about 3.5 million. And he used some portion of that for depreciation, but in looking at what all of our costs were on the construction contract, and this is the financing we got from the infrastructure bank, that it appears that in depreciation, he included costs that will not be incurred again, like a big chunk of the preparation for the transfer station was land clearing and grading. And even though that was a cost the first time around, it's really not a related cost to the replacement of the building, and depreciation could more accurately reflect the actual cost of replacing the building. So it's possible that that depreciation total assumption is high, in which case the amount we'd have to set aside every year would be lower. On the other hand, we're playing catch up. So,
And costs will only increase, so.
yeah, so bottom line is we are playing catch up, costs will increase. We're hoping at the end of this year we've got 100,000 to put in reserve, and if this budget works, same thing next year. If revenue comes in a little less or expenses are a little over, then we will have less money in reserve. But if you can think about that 100,000 budgeted in the budget as your cushion, we have to be that far off before we have a deficit.
So is that amount then going to move into the reserve column if that's what we end up with? So you're going to end up with a reserve column for that depreciation, that funded depreciation?
Yeah, I think at the end of the fiscal year, when we let everything get caught up, all the revenue comes in, all the expenses come in, probably not until August, maybe even September, when the county catches up on all the numbers, then I want to give you the option to look at if we can in fact fund that, to set up a reserve fund, and then that would show up as a separate line on the auditor's report as a funded reserve.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Personally, I think that the depreciation set-aside fund should be separate than the reserve fund.
Right, it would be a dedicated reserve.
Well, yeah, we talked about this at a previous meeting, and ideal would be to have depreciation fund, a landfill emergency fund, a I-bank reserve fund to make loan payments, and
Post-closure.
and post-closure.
Well, and if we're going to be over, also, I'd like to see us fund the GASB.
Right. Well,
In full.
there's 4 or 5 reasons why we should have money set aside. So when it looks like we have extra money, you should look at that as a good thing. We're not running a deficit. We hope to start pushing some money, and that's really going to be your call, how you want to take that, how you want to split it, how you want to have it defined. But basically, any form of reserve fund is accessible by this board for whatever purpose you need. So I wish we had more to set aside, but we don't. But you can split it into several funds if that's what you choose to do.
Any other questions from commissioners?
So when you're developing this budget, what are you figuring the impact will be on the less tonnage going across the scales? Because you take out the tsunami incident, I got to believe tonnage is going to drop. I mean, I'm not seeing that built into your budget at all.
The economy's going to recover, and we're going to have houses being built.
Oh, okay, well.
Well, I think this year with the rates that we have right now, we will be over budget for revenue on the authority service fees. Plus there will be we haven't calculated CPI, but there will be a small increase in disposal and collection, probably not more than 1%.
But are you factoring a decrease in tonnage or no?
We are factoring in a projection based on current year tonnage.
So we're not factoring a decrease in tonnage next year?
No.
So unless we have another tsunami, there's a good chance that we could have a decrease in tonnage. Especially if recycling efforts are successful and people are recycling more, we're not getting paid on that tonnage. It's not going across the scales.
Well,
I think it would be important to see the number for the tsunami that came across as a separate number.
okay. Sure. So far I've got color graphs, line and bar graph, the actual numbers to support it, so Mike can look at the numbers supporting the graphs, and a breakout of tsunami debris versus total general garbage.
Okay, anything else from commissioners?
On credit card service fees, what is that based on?
Well, the first year was based on a wild guess because we'd never done credit cards before, and it's a percentage of the transactions. We didn't know how many transactions we had. For the coming year, it's based on what we're actually seeing for credit card fees. The cost is significantly less than what we thought it would be, so we cut that number for the coming year.
Okay, and on the treasurer, 4,500, why is the figure different from Exhibit A to page 2? On line item 20235, page 2, you have 4,500, and on the Del Norte County summary of costs by department, under the last column, we have 2360, Exhibit A.
What page is the 2360 on?
Page 3, called Exhibit A, Del Norte County summary of costs by department.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The Exhibit A that you're referring to is the cost for the county treasurer's department, and that's the department that takes and manages and invests the money that we make every day. The treasurer on the budget would be Rich Taylor, and we're required to have a agency treasurer, and so that's the budget for Rich Taylor.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else from commissioners? I'm going to open up for public comment. Public comment on the current budget and proposed budget for 2012, 2013. Any public comment? Okay, then we'll direct staff to prepare a proposed final budget based on the board discussion. At the main meeting, transmit the proposed budget to the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors and the Crescent City City Council, and schedule a public hearing as stated in this board report. And we will move on to 7.2.
That was pretty good.
Richard, discussion. Open for public comment on 7.2.
Okay.
Before we say anything.
At the last meeting, I brought something up, and the only person that caught what I was saying was Mr. Finnegan. And maybe it's because of the type of main business that he makes a living out of. I deeply believe, because last couple of months I've been going over some old material that I was given years ago, thinking about some of the problems as a new task force member that I think is a basic problem that's facing you people and the committee that I'm currently sitting on. And it's my personal view that you need to combine the financial and the sustainability and realize that there's more than one type of sustainability. It's my personal view as a consumer, after looking at the zero waste plan that was done many years ago, that you people have the same material in the environment that you've had for the last 20 years. Fortunately, somebody's doing a better job of something. It has to do with the 3 R's. And if you don't know what the 3 R's are, Kevin can tell you, and Mr. Sparrow can tell you. The problem we're having is we have some property that is zoned heavy industry, that currently all it's doing is growing a little bit of Scotch bloom and trees on it, that could be developed, and those funds could be somehow put aside and put into stocks and bonds to make money for this agency so it could pay the fine we got at the dump. Also, I have to laugh. I listen to a university radio station, and that's Humboldt State. If a community that's smaller than we are, and that's Humboldt State, can do things to cut their waste consumption, why can't we look at that? We're not. One of the things we're not doing is we have a lot of green waste going into our transfer station.
Richard, wrap it up, please.
Well, Mr. Hemmingson, this is my personal feeling and not as a member.
I'm not.
No,
I'm
I'm
asking
gonna.
you to wrap it up as all your 3 minutes has expired, but this looks like it would be a perfect thing for the Solid Waste Task Force to look at, but please wrap up your comments.
Okay, my personal feeling, and I've said this at city council meetings, and it's on your next agenda, the best thing for you people to do is the county to take over the dump, use its health department to oversee it, the city and the county to save people like me money is to both do 2 franchise.
Thank you, Richard. Any other public comment?
Andy Larson with the county. If we're looking at long-range sustainability, looking down the road, no matter what happens to the economy, one of the things that we're going to have to study is privatizing the transfer station. That makes, I'm not saying that that's what we should do, but I don't know what study has been done. Has anybody ever studied it? It is not going to get cheaper to run it. I think the county needs the accountability of it, but privatizing wouldn't be my first choice, but looking farther down the road, things aren't going to get better, costs are going to go up. That is something that we need to study and know the answers to.
Great, thanks, Andy.
Ron Placetti, county resident. I agree with him in principle that it would be a good idea for this board to put out a RFP to see what it would really cost to run the facility more efficiently cost-wise by privatizing, and if it does not, or it does, whatever the information that's obtained by putting it out to bid through an RFP would enable us to determine whether those cost savings are real, and if we could find out if they are and they do meet the objectives of managing and having oversight with in the county, and also with the other partner of the city. They could have a private entity that's supervised by our CAO in the county and our city manager and report to them. It is an option that you guys should consider. If there's any significant cost savings, we need to look at that, because in the long term, the people in this community and other communities around the state, their life standard is going to continue to decline with what's going on in our economy. So we do need to look at cost savings in any avenue that we can to reduce the cost of living. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Any other public comment? Okay, no other public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the commission.
Chair, can I ask a clarifying question? Are you guys talking about privatizing just the transfer station? Just yes or no would be fine.
I think we're talking about privatizing the actual oversight of the transfer station as one entity, say Ambrose. They want to put RFP, if Ambrose wants to do the entire operation and report to the county and
Yeah.
Ron, you gotta stand up.
Otherwise, people in TV land can't hear you.
Okay, in TV land, it's for TV land. What I suggested is that we put an RFP out. We need to find out if those cost savings are real or illusory. If they are real, then we can put out an RFP and say, ask Hambros, what would you charge to run the entire operation and how much would it cost? If there's cost savings of significance, then they could report to the CAO. We can do away with this board, and you can have the city and county manage it, or you can have one entity manage it, whatever is decided here. But there is a way to do this, and I think that we need to put an RFP out and find out if there really is a cost saving. Otherwise, we just keep what we got, you know, and that's what I want to find out. And as a taxpayer, I think we are entitled to know if there is a way to do it for less money. Thank you.
So my comment is just that I'm all for privatizing anytime you can do that, so that local people can be in business. But it would seem to me that the only thing that you would cut out, because if you still have the city and the county managing it, then you've still got the city and the county costs to manage it. And the city and the county, if they were managing it, would still have to report to our boards to do so. So there's that. And then also, I was just thinking, really the only difference would be the employee cost difference between what we have now and what the city and county would have to manage it. And then the other thing is that
the answers to those exact questions.
yeah, and then the loss, and then the possibly the loss of all of the grant funding.
Well, it's
I was
almost
just walking through it in
500.
my head.
The big bird way.
Right now, we're looking at almost 500,000 in total salaries and benefits, so it is a very legitimate concern, and I agree.
I would like to say something, Mr. Chair. I've been on the board for several years, and from the start of hearing dissolution of the Solid Waste Management Board, we have never heard anybody come up with, you know, even after the ad hoc committee, everything, nobody has come up with an alternative. I don't feel that we can just throw an RFP out there. I think you need some kind of feasibility study, something to compare.
You need RFP. You can't speak from the chair. You have to be at the microphone.
That's just my opinion. With what all is involved with solid waste and the landfill, I don't think everybody sees the whole picture. And the state requirements and the reports to the state. And, you know, are those going to be met by a private company? That's my concern.
Yeah, there are other private companies that do this all over the country.
Ron, I'm going to ask you this. Okay. We're not going to have a debate back and forth. Yeah, exactly.
I would like to say that in looking at a sustainability for financial sustainability, I think that we need to make sure that we continue to keep the eye on identifying where the reserves need to be. We need to keep continuing to understand that this is an over 300-day round-the-clock, round-the-year operation, and a lot of those salaries are your gate people. And so that would always continue. If it were managed by a private company, they are going to have to bid to pay those employees. Those employees are also members of the county family as far as the association. So that would have to be something that would have to be negotiated, you know, because private contracting in government services has not always been a panacea. And then we would have to have employees at the city and the state, because, I mean, the city and the county, because both entities have to manage a waste plan. And the waste plan doesn't go away with the private company. Those are requirements that are mandated for us to have as part of the service that we do. The management of the landfill is a requirement that we have with the water board. Those are cost issues that aren't out privately. This is one of the, I would see as one of the best examples of public-private partnerships that we have. That we have Recology being able to employ people at living wages, and we have Hambros being able to employ people at living wages. And I'm going to turn back the clock and remind people of when the entire operation was done by one entity. It was very problematic. And there were times that, you know, you could arrive at the dump with your pickup load, and the guy says, it looks like it's $12 worth. There's no cash register. There was no receipt. It was nothing. And we started figuring out that, you know, we weren't making the money that should be made from the county's end because of this franchise agreement, that we needed to tighten that up a little bit. I mean, and that was when we first got the first scale. And this stuff doesn't move in a day, but this example of a public-private partnership is extremely strong because we have two separate franchise companies being over, and the oversight and meeting the state mandates and requirements is what is being done by the authority. And that, to me, is important. But now, is there a way that we can have the authority oversee it and understand that our movement towards sustainability is to make sure that we have the revenue projections correct, that we have our planning correct, and that we are moving in a direction that in 20 years, when we pay off the iBank, which also requires that the transfer station be owned by a public entity, can't be owned by a private company, but it can be, the internal management can be part of that. But so it's very complex in relationship to how solid waste rules and laws in California interface with private companies. And I believe that we can look at it, but to get the cart so far in front of the horse to say, let's do an RFP, you haven't done what needs to be done. And in fact, in today's newspaper, I think that the person hit it on the head. That years ago, some people came in and they held up a 9.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it had a picture of an incinerator on it, and by God, that's what solid waste should do. Solid waste should dissolve, and we should have an incinerator here. And, but there was no analysis. And you can ask Harrisburg, Pennsylvania what that did, because it put them belly up when that same company that's now gone into foreclosure has left them holding a giant bag of debt. $70 million or something. So I'm cautioning that, yes, we should always be looking how to make things better and possibly facilitate change that I can't tell you what it's going to look like, but to want to jump to an RFP is that you haven't read the 25,000 pages that you probably need to take care of first.
Martha, if the private company, let's just say down the road, if there was a private company that went to bid on something eventually, could that company in the RFP, they would have to pay off the loan to the iBank
I have no idea what it would actually look like.
I think we're getting into a whole bunch of speculation
Yeah.
here that I don't think we can deal. I mean, we could go on, we can talk about this for the next 3 or 4 hours on speculation. Rick, do you have anything?
Yeah, it just occurs to me, when we look at this chart that we made reference to earlier in the meeting, it's clear that the better we do our job, the more likely it is that we're going to go out of business. If we do it right,
That would be the goal.
that would be the goal. So it seems like if we're going to sustain ourselves, we do have to track the tonnage in a very accurate and deliberate way, so that we can, make sure that we have a similar reduction in our expenses to meet those. I mean, it's simplistic. The only other thing I would say about privatization is I too am a little bit concerned about how that relates to the closure of the old landfill. I mean, there's a lot of complexity here that is not simple, and so.
Rich, you got anything?
I was just going to say that, good luck. I was just going to say that even though It may be complex. There's always a way to look at something to see if we're doing it right or if we're doing it the cheapest. There's always a way to look at it.
Right, that's what we're agreeing, that we need to look at it, not
Yes.
just throw out an
Catherine, do you have something?
No, I just was trying to help.
Okay,
I'm sorry, just the rosy picture, the doom and gloom picture of everything being privatized, I don't buy it. 90% of this thing is privatized right now. There are two companies that do 90% of the work right now. So you're talking about 10%. The iBank loan, if it was privatized, would be paid off. iBank doesn't have a problem getting their money back. That's not a problem. Additionally, the grant stuff, I know we keep putting this, and that's the part that I've been trying to make sure we're accurate about. We do not get millions of dollars of grants here. We have not got $1 million spent in this community. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, which, by the way, could be farmed out. They still could be got by the county or by the city.
And
That money was not spent here. 430 was not spent in Delaware County.
And you will still, if you privatized your 10%, which is very accurate, you still have the requirements of city and county government to adhere to the application and the rules of California solid waste handling. And that oversight has to be managed by the county, and that's what this 10% is doing.
Which is what Colusa County does with theirs, and it's completely privatized.
Which brings me to the direction that I'm going to give the director, and that is to check privatized counties or garbage collection in other counties that are approximate size, shape, and complexities of whatever they have to do, because they would have the same reporting issues that we do. So let's start there. Let's do some research on what's out there that's privatized, and if there's something out there that can be used in our situation or adapted to our situation, and then we could possibly look at an RFP situation. I don't want to get into a whole bunch of speculation.
And at the same time, you're looking at the completely what on the surface appears to be completely privatized systems. Let's find out from the counties what the CDD is doing or what Department of Health is doing in relationship to that.
Absolutely, I have no issue with that. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at those and see if we can find some that are out there that are completely privatized, and then let's look and see what they're doing, and see if there could be some possible cost savings there. Let's start there, and then maybe we can branch out or decide that, you know what, they just can't get it done, and we'll go from there.
When you say we, do you mean the task force or?
No,
I'm talking about we, this we person that's sitting over here with the glasses, the old guy that we pay life insurance on.
So we're asking,
Yeah,
I
you guys shouldn't-
just want to be clear that we're setting, telling him exactly so he understands. So
Is there any question?
are we directing him?
Kevin, what you think I'm looking for? I mean, do
Well,
I
maybe
need
I
to
have a
expound on
question,
it?
so
I think it's a complicated request, but I'll do my best to try to bring you information on counties that have private operations. I think what we're going to find is any county that owns a landfill probably still owns that landfill and the liability related to it, just as we do. There may be similarities, but we have good partners with the other rural counties, and they're always happy to share their successes and/or failures. So
That's what I was going to ask.
I'll
Because
ask.
there's probably,
I can ask.
probably has areas that they do everything. Maybe Hambros knows of some situations.
I think I've been proving every month that I'm not quite getting all the requests for information, and as much as I am trying, I'm not. I'll try to get you the information that I think you're asking for, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
And I assume as you go through that, you talk to individuals that are in the know, and you're able to see if they've considered it. Maybe they're not currently running it, and they know the pitfalls and that kind of thing, and you could save some time for us.
I think the other thing, not to argue about or anything, but if the zero waste policy is successful, we're going to end up privatized anyway. I mean, that's the reality of it. I'd at least like to know what the process would be.
Mr. Chair, how soon would this request want to be completed? Because it sounds like it's going to take a little bit of time to gather, so not
I-
expected by next month, right?
Well, I'm not expecting it next month if it can be done that soon, but if, I would like to get a progress report on how we're doing, maybe who we've contacted, maybe, I'm not saying, yeah, you have to have it next month, but let's find out where you're at, what you found out to the point in next month.
And I think
you're
you
talking
have-
about making
yeah.
some phone calls. Some of those phone calls are going to be very quick, and no, we don't have any privatization, or yeah, we do, this is what we do, blah, blah, blah. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I might, one of the things that I would request, and I thought that was one of the things we had on the agenda, was to project out the budget based on recycling and the impact it will have on it and the tonnage that will decline. And I think that has to be built in. That's what I view as financial sustainability. There is a point when we drop below a certain tonnage, we don't have the revenue.
yeah, I did think that Ted, were you working on some projections of where we've been in the past and comparing that to the direction or was that?
Future projections entail a lot of uncertainty. A
Well,
lot of what we've seen, fluctuation in the construction trade, for instance, makes a huge difference on the tonnage through the transfer station floor.
Well, and also I think we have to have at least a year under our belts with a new franchise to really have a base to see the difference in the tonnage and the recycling and how that's affected us.
Well, but we were looking, and I thought, Kevin, I thought you had told me that Ted was working on some information to project out, what we were doing in the past and the direction that the waste was going.
I guess we only...
And there is a graph there. And
we only started today, and with color graphs, it'll be a little more clear. With the color bar graph, that would be more clear, but with numbers to support it, we'll give you all the numbers that you want as far as supporting numbers on this. And we will take another look at the measured amount of recycling that's been collected since the beginning of the year. I mean, Kelly's as right as anything that the bigger the step back, the bigger the picture we have. A full year would be nice, but you're asking now, so we'll get you what we can get you.
Okay. We're going to move on to 7. Yes.
Public comment?
I already had public comment. Public comment first. We're going to move on to 7.3. And this was some information that I think Supervisor Sullivan asked about originally on the ordinances, and I think a lot of us feel the same way that for this authority to pass ordinances that affect both the city and the county as a whole, they should be at least ratified or at least come before either the board or the city council. So I think that's where this whole discussion got started. But then as I met with Kevin, he also mentioned that there were some other amendments that maybe needed to be done to this, the JPA's structure. So if we could focus on some changes that we may want to make to the structure of the JPA and its authority to do. There's no question that the authority is given to them in this in the document, but I'm not sure that it's rightfully so personally. Whether the rest of the board feels that way.
I'm not opposed to looking at what I think Martha's brought up, changes that possibly need to happen to the JPA going forward, as if those can be brought to the next board meeting or the following as we find those and suggest and bring them up to the board meeting. My specific request was to amend the JPA today, that any future ordinances passed by this body would have to be to go into effect would have to be approved by a majority vote of the City Council and majority vote of the Board of Supervisors to go into effect.
And
Isn't that what we're doing though?
yeah, well, and right now, I don't think that there's a need for that to do that today, because we all are all here, and it does take 3 members from each entity to pass any ordinance today. But this board is not going to be like this a year from now. Thank you. Or
So I'd like to start the process today with, I don't know what the process is. Martha, maybe you can answer as to what the time frame is to amend the JPA. Does it have to go over 2 meetings or is it just 1?
All that I suggested, Mike, was that, just for efficiency, if other board members have ideas of changes, upgrades, improvements, reforms, anything along those lines, it would make some sense to get them all together so that you guys don't have to go through JPA amendments every other month, and that we're not going to do any ordinances.
And that'd be fine. I still would like to address this, and that was my intent with
And this may
putting
be
it on this
something
meeting.
that the task force could look at also. And so, you know, you guys can go over that with a fine tooth comb, and Kevin can help. I know he had some issues that didn't exactly match up. So if we could get that looked at also, I think that'd be a great help for everybody. Then we can bring that and make all these amendments at the same time, or throw out the ones we don't want, but at least when we amend it, we'll all be in agreement that that's what it
I would actually prefer to get this going on this one. This has been a point of contention for me and a lot of constituents for a long period of time, to be able to pass laws that affect the entire county. With this board may not be the same, like Finnegan said it earlier, it may not be the same makeup.
It's not going to be. It is not going to be.
I in theory agree, but I'm starting to think about all of the other boards that we have that pass resolutions and ordinances, or maybe not ordinances, but
But you have 3 members on the Local Transportation Commission, so you have a majority.
Right now, we have a majority because we have the whole.
right. Anyway, I was just thinking that if it's going to be a policy that the city and county wants to start enacting for all boards that have decision-making processes that affect the bigger picture.
Yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, I don't think there's any other boards that can pass ordinances. Resolutions, maybe. I don't think there's any that can pass ordinances. Martha, help me?
Airport.
No, I'm not. I think that is one distinguishing factor between this board and the others.
Yeah,
I don't know of
think
any that
there's
actually
any
pass
other-
ordinances.
Any other committee or commission that can make ordinances.
Is there a way that we can vote to suspend the ability of the ordinance in agreement here, and then, because I'm just thinking, we just want to read it so we can have a clean process. If there's 2 or 3 other things that's in the JPA that we want to omit, it would be a good idea to do it all at one shot.
Well, this board.
And there's not an ordinance on the horizon.
Right.
No, I think the crux of the issue is if you had 5 of one entity and 1 of the other entity, it would be a 6-4 vote, but it would not be condoned by one of those governing entities. And that's something we should try to avoid.
Well,
I know that the reason it started is because we had a public member on there with minorities of both boards. But going forward, if the sentiment is for a majority of the board.
Yeah, I think that the language needs to be cleaned up, but what I'm saying is there may be other language that we would like to clean up in there. I
Yes,
mean,
and that was the whole point, and that's what Kevin brought up, is, hey, wait a minute, there's other things in here. Let's bring them all forward. We'll all, as this board, will go over those items and pick and choose the ones that we want to change or don't want to change at that time.
and maybe what we should do, maybe we could go ahead and move forward with just this one, but have a plan that we want to take a look at.
It says we can do action, so if you want to make a motion.
I would make that motion.
The motion states?
The motion states that for any ordinance passed by the Solid Waste Management Authority to go into effect has to be ratified by a majority of the City Council and the majority of the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
And did we figure out that we can make an ordinance or create an ordinance?
We're amending the JPA.
We're amending this
Oh, okay.
JPA.
But in the future.
So do you want to, do you just want to make that motion to pull the authority from this board?
I want that, I want it to be with the elected officials in their respective jurisdictions. That's the majority of both boards.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chair? When I sit on a board, other than the city council, I wear that hat. I don't wear the city council hat. So I am representing everybody
that is involved in that particular board. So I am a little bit offended to think that those of us that are on city council or the county would be representing only the county or the city interests. They should be representing the hat that they're wearing on that particular board.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't be offended because I know at the JPA, the Economic Development JPA, it is in the bylaws that there needs to be an affirmative vote by each body that is represented there before anything can be passed. So this is not rocket scientists, and we're not breaking new ground. Right. It's just that we, want to do something.
I just have a quick question. So in the future, after we're not the super committee, and we will not have a public member, will we have 3 from each board?
Well,
and if we do, then we'll have a majority.
We haven't gotten there yet, and we got a different motion on the floor right now, and I'm going to ask for public comment. Richard.
Mr. Hemmingson.
Yes.
I'd like to point something out to you, and I think I pointed this out at a Board of Supervisors meeting, because I find something very interesting. Both my city and my county have a nuisance ordinance. So I decided that I'd contact both the city clerk and get a copy of the city's nuisance ordinance, and I contacted the clerk of the county and got a copy of the county's ordinance. But this is what I think is interesting, and I want to ask you if you're going to fix something, Mr. Hemmingson. In the county nuisance ordinance, because some of the ordinances we'll be looking at, and one of them will be talking to the landlords on the 10th, in some way it's covered both in the city and the county's nuisance ordinance. But in the county's ordinance, and I find it amazing, being a law librarian, that this county's ordinance clearly states in its nuisance ordinance that the county will not support another agency's ordinances. I find that shocking, because if you people are going to you're a separate entity. Miss Murray is right. You wear the hat of the city and the hat of the county when you come to these meetings. If the county as a partner has a clause like that in its ordinance, nuisance ordinance, which covers some of the same ordinances that Kevin is trying to apply, it looks like at the next Board of Supervisors meeting, the county may want to ask its council to fix one phrase in a county ordinance.
Thank you, Richard. Any other public comment? Mr. Dillard?
Paul Dillard with the county. I think there's some valid issues here, but I think we have to go back to October when you met and made a decision. Now, if you abolish the Waste Management Board, then Catherine, I think, is right, then you're meeting as a group. But if you just suspended the board and you're sitting here as the Waste Management Board, 10 of you, then David's right. The bylaws are in place. And so I don't see this as a separate board. You are the Waste Management Board now. And so Mike's motion there is appropriate because you both are setting as city and county, and the bylaws clearly say that you have to make a decision as those entities. Now, I may be wrong. I'm just throwing it out there. I think it really hinges on what happened in October. Okay?
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment,
Jerry?
then I'm going to...
Martha has something.
I'd just like to make a comment on,
Sure.
or a suggestion for process on the agenda. The wording is regarding a preferred process. It doesn't actually mention approving an amendment today. I would recommend putting that on the next agenda, approving a proposed amendment and giving direction to send it to the city and county for
Okay.
approval.
Yep, all right, sounds good. Okay, any other discussion then on this item?
Yeah, Jerry? Is there going to be time, could you go through the rest of the JPA and come back with other recommendations by next meeting? I mean, it seems the most pragmatic way to do this if we're not going to meet again.
I got no problem with it either way.
Well, I was really hoping to provide the board all a chance to comment on additional changes that they wanted to, and if, I'm sorry, but I'm just not, my understanding is you will be sitting here till December, so there will be no ordinance passed by a 5-member board until then. Nothing bad will happen if you allow yourselves enough time to look at this JPA and amend it once and do it in the way that you want it. But I'll follow your direction, and I'll
Well, let's follow.
agendize it, and you're the chair.
Let's follow council's direction and Mr. Hawley's suggestion in that we try to incorporate as many amendments that come forth before the next meeting. Put that on the agenda.
Okay, then I'll ask all the board members that have any ideas, thoughts, or concerns in addition to...
As well as the task force.
Of course.
Okay.
But I work for you, and you ask them what you want.
Mr. Chair, may I finish my comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. My only concern, or just the thought in my head as I'm working through this, is that we will no longer have, I'm sorry? Oh, sorry, I'm loud. Is we will no longer have a public member. So if we, in the future, have...
And I don't mean to cut you short,
Well,
but
if
you're
you'd let-
speculating on how this board is going to be made up, and we haven't even gotten to that.
I know, but if you let me finish speaking, I could probably make my point. If in the future, we are no longer the super committee, and we are just representing the city and the county, you can't have 2 from one and 3 from another, or maybe you can, but if we have 3 from each, we are going to be a majority of each body. And so that would just conflict with, we would already have a majority from the body, so we would need that if we were to create a new ordinance that says it has to be ratified by the city and the county, then we would be ratifying it as a majority here, and then also ratifying it again as a majority at the council level, or supervisor level.
You know, if I might, there's nothing insidious being planned here by this, because hopefully the city and the county are working together towards even closely, more closely than we have in the past, in sharing services and cooperating and whatnot. But number one, 3 and 3 doesn't mean a majority by both, because if one person from the county votes in the negative and 2, or 1 in the affirmative and 2 in the negative, sides with the other side, the majority of the county would not be represented. It would be in the minority, but the motion would pass. And while I stated that what we really want to do is work together, there is always a possibility that the city may decide that they want mandatory pickups, and the county doesn't. So there are some issues that could pop up, and I think it is appropriate that we do look at how we vote and who we represent, as well as the body politic, because the body politic is going to change. That's a constant.
Kelly, anything else?
No, thank you.
Anything else, commissioners?
I just have a quick announcement that's totally off topic. That I'm pushing doughboys on Saturday and Sunday. Down at the Tall Ships, the Joby girls are making doughboys, and you only get them 3 times a year, so you have an opportunity to...
And you're out of order.
Do we
because
get
you never brought
preferential
any-
treatment at the back door?
And if you come to the back door if I'm working. But everybody go down to the Tall Ships and have a doughboy.
Okay, and with that, I thought we were going to have a short agenda and be done 45 minutes ago, but but we had no fluorescent lamps on the agenda, so that probably saved us a half an hour. Thank you. We are adjourned.